Hello, thanks for watching another random palm reading. This person sent me their palms. I know nothing about them other than what they've told me in their email. They randomly emailed me their palms. They are 37, they're an artist. They'd like to know about this, what they believe is a star on their lunar mount here. And they'd like to know a little bit about their career and where that's going. So to properly understand what this means and why it's significant, we need to understand a bit more about this person. To understand their sort of character template and what their predispositions are, their strengths, their weaknesses, what they're prone to. And this is all part of palmistry. It's all part of understanding a person holistically, so we can understand, connect the dots, understand the clues, the circumstantial evidence, and come to an accurate conclusion. Palmists are detectives. Now, this person is a water hand. They have a long palm and long fingers. The longest finger, the Saturn finger, is 7/8 of the palm's length or longer, so we know you have long fingers, and there's certainly a long palm. The uppermost section of the palm is wider than the lower section, so it's a broad topped palm. It's almost sort of spatulate, and this means that the mental and the emotional realms are greater. There's a greater capacity to learn and to love. And when we talk about love in palmistry in particular, we look at the Venus mount and the Apollo finger. It's not just its appreciation, it's an ability to soak up and absorb all of the natural beauty around them. And this person, being that they're an artist, makes a lot of sense, because when we look at the Apollo finger, the shape of it, Apollo and Saturn are more spatulate than the other fingers, and an Apollo finger that's spatulate is always someone who is creative with sort of physical, tangible results at the end of it. They like to create things, physical things that stand the test of time, that can be appreciated creatively, artistically. The headline and the lifeline are separate from each other. This is a key feature of water palms. Also, the headline itself drops quite far down into the lower realms of lunar. This again is a very common feature of the water palms, and this shows an ability to have a rich and creative imagination, an ability to be creative, but also their thoughts can sometimes be unrealistic and they can run away with themselves. This is also a very anxious person, and if you notice, the left hand has lots more lines. This is a many-lined hand, or a full hand as sometimes it's referred to. The left hand doesn't have quite so many lines, so this means internally they are constantly thinking, very anxious, always thinking in the future. Whereas on the right hand, not only have they sort of calmed down as a person, they've aligned themselves, they're more present now, they've become more present as a person and more able to live in the present, but also it shows that they don't appear as anxious, as they don't let on just how anxious they're feeling. They're very good at that. So in essence, others don't really know this person's true sort of feelings, at least those not as close to them. Now, one of the other key features about the water hand is that they have, because they're so sensitive and creative, they have often, they feel the negativity around them, they see it around them, and they have to deal with this in a way that others, they're not burdened with this double-edged sword of oversensitivity that others are, so they have to find coping strategies. And one of these common coping strategies is addiction, or OCD, or eating disorders. And we always generally see this in more commonly we see it in water palms, especially when there's a large space in between Jupiter and Saturn and Apollo and Mercury. These two fingers are wound, very tightly close together. I've just drawn a funny picture there. Ignore that. But we don't quite see the same thing on the right hand. I don't want to pay too much attention to this, but this large spacing here and here is quite commonly seen with people with eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia. So bear that in mind, and whilst you do, notice this here. Now I'm touching on the subject of what they wanted me to. This is an escape line, sometimes referred to as an allergy line, a toxicity line, a poison line, an addiction line, and all of these things in some sort of sense are related or mean a similar or the same thing. The Venus mount shows our innermost desires. This desire here, it's a lot of things. It's physical as well as who we are, essentially. But when a line crosses over from this, crosses the life and or the fate line, right over into the outer world, into this place of vast escapism. It shows this person has a desire to bring their life outwards and move and travel and escape. The left hand is internal, and it's showing the desire here, whereas the right hand is showing the physical implications. So essentially we're seeing two signs of coping strategies in the palm. And now we're going to look at the reasons for those coping strategies. Now look on the headline here, you can see this little flick upwards here. Now wherever the headline reaches for outer Mars, it's always a need to make money. Now this person said they're an artist, they're 37, and they are interested to know more about their career. Now anyone in an artistic industry will know that their fortune waxes and wanes, just as trends do, just as popularity does. And you can see the fate line here, it kind of thins out in a couple of places on the palms, and this shows where in this person's life they may well be they're putting effort in, but they're not really getting as much out of it materialistically as the right palm. And on the left you can see that they are always working. There's never a point where they're out of work. It's just that the need to change a couple of times here is quite strong. This person has had a lot of obstacles in their life, a lot of unforeseen events, a lot of unhappy things have happened, a lot of influences here and disturbances. There's a double Mercury line, which is always seen in people who have a great sort of fear around their health. They worry around their health, so that's a clue in itself that this person has got some health issues. But the main thing I want to point out, the first sort of thing here, is where the heartline kind of reaches down towards and crosses the lifeline at the age of around about 18. So there's some complex family dynamics here. There's something going along in this family. There's a need to kind of protect here as well, the mental health, because this has seriously affected them at this time. And actually, you know, all of these needs to sort of repair and aid to provide assistance here along inside the lifeline, and these influences here, they're all creating these squares. So, you know, squares seen on the inside of the lifeline, this is a fear of hospitalization or imprisonment, or even psychiatric institute admittance. Now the right hand will show just how that's affected this person physically, practically. And we can see there is some you know, there is some squares here. Look, this is not a double lifeline as a lot of people might interpret. This is in fact a Mars line, and there's a need to protect or provide assistance at this time, and it's coursing. It's very strong assistance here. These are influences from the family, and there's quite a lot of them, and they do create these squares. The convergence of lines here creates a few squares. And I actually think this person has, because of the other circumstantial clues here that I've already looked at and I've already discussed, I do think this person has been into rehab a couple of times or something similar. And a lot of it stems from this period of around about 18. There was a huge disappointment here, huge kind of heartache. There's another here as well, seen even younger. You know, and this is partly why the lines are a lot stronger in the left hand, because of what they've been through and how this has affected them, how this has shaped them as a person. The plus side is that our experiences provide us with wisdom and knowledge, and they leave a mark on us in a way that allows creative people, particularly water hands, people, you know, water hands as creative as this, to utilize these experiences in their art, in what they create, in their career. And this can, it's turning a negative into a positive. And this is what I believe this person has learned to do. There's certainly a very strong feeling of a need to make money at this time. And I want to get around to what this means now. What they believe is a star on their lunar mount. First of all, I just want to point out that this is more or less the lunar mount. Lunar is this place of dreams, of imagination, the desire to travel and explore, to understand the outside world. It's also our ability to tap into our unconscious, and it's from this area that we utilize in when we need to react quickly in the moment, unconsciously. Pretty much all artists have a headline that reaches into lunar into some fashion. Now the headline here reaches quite low down into lunar. 27 for this person was a particularly difficult time, and after this time you notice how the headline tends to take a different turn, tends to drop into more of an unrealistic, tends to fantasize, to reach for these, reaches into the unconscious, into the dream aspect of the psyche, almost as probably another coping mechanism here. When life gets too difficult, we escape, and sometimes that's just as simple as, you know, watching a drama on television, having a glass of wine. We stimulate ourselves with stimulants, with depressants every day. Everybody has some sort of vice, even if it's just a bar of chocolate, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we depend too much, when we dip too far into escape, then things can become a little bit dangerous. And again, there's actually nothing wrong with fantasizing or escapism, as long as it's in moderation, as long as it's healthy, and as long as there's a way to understand the need for that, and when it becomes unhealthy. In other words, as long as there's something else to ground to compensate for that. Now, being a water hand, there's a lot of water hands are very fluid, very adaptable, flexible, and the thumb here shows this as well. This is a very flexible and adaptable thumb. This is someone who has likely had to adapt in the moment, and still does in fact, but also may well get pushed around a little bit too much. So it's important that this person understands themselves in the moment and doesn't let themselves get pushed around. Sometimes it's really handy for a water hand to have an earth hand around them, just to keep them grounded, to advise, to guide, to quite literally bring them back down to earth. A short palm, and short fingers is an earth hand, and earth hands, they are also nourished by the kind of rich imagination and ideas and the creativity that the water hand has inherently, just by their very nature, as particularly creatives like this person here. Earth hands are also very loyal, and so to have close friends as earth hands, water hands really benefit from that. But also water hands, this person, notice how Pluto is quite sort of angled, it's quite sort of right angular here. This is someone who knows their body very well. This is also another sign of this, as well as the double Mercury lines. As I say, they think about their health quite a lot, but this is also someone who has an affinity for water. All the signs are pointing to this with this person's palm. And again, too much of anything is bad, and being a water hand, this constant fluidity to their nature, I feel like this person needs a bit more grounding. So it's important that this person goes for walks out in the country, surround themselves by natural hard objects, mountains, rocks, fields, earth, trees, dogs as well. Surround themselves with earthy things. Get involved in tasks that are slightly probably not what they would consider themselves normally doing, like gardening. This is not a gardener's hand at all. This is certainly someone who's much better with their head than their hands. But I think that by doing things a little bit outside of their comfort zone, that are more sort of down to earth, quite literally practical, completely outside of their comfort zone, their nature, like sports that are, on the ground level, like tennis or football, things they probably don't enjoy all that much. In some way, this would really help ground them and alleviate some of the more unfortunate aspects of being such a strong water hand. Because being such a, definite to the element, being so water, this person has a great deal of creativity, hugely in touch with their unconscious side, very imaginative, they're very in touch with their emotions and other people's emotions, very able to understand people on every level, read people's emotions, know how to console others, very empathetic, sympathetic. All these skills are strong inherently within the person, but also they feel all of that negativity as well, and this can get on top of them and overburden them, and so this need to escape, to cope, sometimes unhealthily, is quite strong as well. All of the cons are quite strong here as well with this water, so there's a need here to ground. I think there was a need to move away here in this person's early to mid-20s. It looks to me as though the lifeline overlaps here. There's an overlapping lifeline. Either that or the fate line takes over as the lifeline. The lifeline crosses. There's a travel line here that crosses the headline. I'm wondering if this person left home quite young, fell in with the wrong crowd, maybe started using, and this kind of became a coping strategy, a coping mechanism. On the right hand we see this, it's very faint, but the lifeline drifts away and touches this escape line, if you like. I mean, it's a little bit confusing because, you know, we do see someone who's very conscious around their health, but at the same time potentially has used drugs or alcohol as a way of coping. So I feel like they are, you know, if they have been in rehab, that might be the reason for this very sort of health, bodily conscious aspect of them. But this sort of, on the right hand here, this is a practical, it's the lifeline's reaching over towards this escape. It crosses the fate line here. This escape line crosses both fate lines, and or unless this is possibly a doubling of the lifeline, an overlapping, sorry, and this would again suggest this person has moved outside of their original environment. They've moved away from home. They did this in their mid-20s, if that is what's happening here. This is quite complex. In answer to their original question, I don't believe that this is in fact a star. We can see the lifeline crossing this overlapping lifeline or potentially fate line. I'm more inclined to believe this is a fate line. And where it does, we can see there is some sort of disturbance here. Notice the cut here. The lifeline becomes faint as it crosses over and comes into contact with this escape, has a direct contact with this. So there's a real shift in the way this person lives their life. We see that in the fate lines here. They take a completely different turn here, and that really comes into effect at the age of about 50. And after this, we see real strengthening here of the sun line. You see the roots of the sun line here branching from the heart line, and it shows this person, they are supported by someone very close to them, likely a partner. The sun line here appears to almost have a sort of flag on it here, and this really seems to point towards something very prosperous, reaching outwards and upwards, expressive. It's positive, it's peaceful, it's happy, it's stable. It's almost a sort of spiritual enlightenment, but it's certainly not before a long and difficult, arduous road that's travelled. And if this person hadn't closed some doors themselves in their mid-20s, they wouldn't have made these vast achievements in the first place. All of this wouldn't have been possible in later life. So they're coming full circle in a way. The age of 23 was significant for advancements in their career, and if it hadn't been for that, it wouldn't have been possible to have met the people they've met, to have moved outside of their environment, to have experienced the things that they had, to have made this eventuality possible. And we see here this is an effort line, an improvement line here, and it has a direct correlation with their success right up into the later periods of their life. This here is a potential to slip back into an old pattern, I feel, to sometimes we feel more secure when we reach and when we get in touch with the more familiar part of ourselves. Sometimes we self-sabotage, and this in itself is a coping mechanism because it's what's familiar. And sometimes when we step into the unknown, when things become a little bit too good to be true, it makes sense to shake the bird cage almost, and to mess it all up, because that makes sense, that's familiar in some way, that's security, because that's all we know. And I think for this person there was potential rehabilitation at the age of 33, at the age of 42, and there's another potential for at the age of 50. And that's what I want this person to look out for: 42 and 50. Be mindful. Stick to the straight and narrow. Keep only the most grounded of people around you. Ground yourself with earthy things, practical things, loyal things, structured things, things that actually are a little bit not you. This, routine and order is not this person. In fact, they probably feel quite oppressed by that just because of their constant fluid and flexible and adaptable nature. They probably are a free bird of some sense. Career looks very strong from 37 onwards, but as I say, just be mindful at the ages of 42 and the age of about 50. If what I have said is, relapsing, there is potential for that here. If it's not relapsing, it's something similar, this person will know what that means. So just to be clear, a star in palmistry is something, is 5 or more points together, not actually touching anything unless it's at the end of a major line. It's not, or unless it's sort of on a line itself. If it's sort of touching something else, like this isn't I'm not a star, it's 4 points. It's not possible without this sort of creation in itself. This is a star. This is a star. 5 points or more. The more isolated, the more profound. Stars are either very, very good or very, very bad. They're shocking, sudden, miraculous. They are flashing moments in a person's life. They're flashes of genius. It's winning the lottery. It's also falling over and bashing your head and finding yourself in hospital for a month or two. It's a shocking incident that's quite often completely and utterly outside of our control. Just like being a genius, it's not something that you can learn to be. The fact that we see this lifeline pulling away and touching this escape line where we do, in between Luna, just above Neptune, and actually it's in the realms of Mars. This is a mixture of social and creative and imaginative. It's just about on the unconscious side of this person's palm. For me, this is a little bit of a warning sign, and I can see that overall this person's health has improved over time. But again, there's this possibility for whatever that's happened to sort of re-happen again. They might well not be feeling incredibly good about their close relationship at this time. The left hand shows quite a stronger sort of pulling downwards of the attachment line. The right hand shows a similar thing, although it's not nearly as clear. 42 might well be a breakup and the need, the desire to find a way to cope with this hurt, with this loss. Have no fear. There will be another very strong and much happier relationship around the corner if this does happen. At least that's my interpretation, and that's where I'm going to finish with this person's palm reading. Let me know what your thoughts are on this palm reading. Let me know if you have a star on your palm, and if you're wondering what this means, please feel free to email me. Now, as we know, a lot of creatives, a lot of artists, a lot of musicians utilize drugs and hallucinogens to enhance their work, to enhance their creative juices, if you like. And it's said that some of the best music in the world was as a result of heroin, although that's completely debatable. And it could be that that is what this person has done or will do, because a star on Luna, if we see a star on Luna on its own, it shows some sort of brilliance, some sort of creative success, success through imagination, through music, art, literature, writing. It shows creative or imaginative brilliance and a success that comes from that. The northward facing lines, the upward strokes, are always positive, and this is why a trident at the end of a life, at the end of a fate line, is seen as you can't get much better than that at the end of a fate line or a success line. But the downward facing strokes to a star are negative, because with every good thing there's a bad, with every there's always a drawback to being a genius. There's always a pro, there's always a con to the pro. Now, if in fact this is what's occurring on this person's palm, if this is certainly a star that's at this kind of intersection of the lifeline attached, connected to this escape line, drug line, addiction line, whatever you want to call it, this for me would represent a very sort of shocking episode, or possibly a sudden allergic reaction, or possibly even, dare I say, an overdose. Not necessarily fatal, but something that's very shocking. It could well also be some instance of extreme fortune brought about by an event that occurs whilst travelling. That is probably one of those two things, and I'm aware those are very different things, and I would say more likely the former due to everything else we've seen in this person's palm. And this is why it's so vital to understand, to get a clearer picture as to who a person is before coming to drawing conclusions around the chirology. Always understand the chirognomy before the chirology. Palmistry is detective work. We have to look at the circumstantial evidence and draw accurate conclusions based on this sort of holistic view. So let me know what your thoughts are, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.